Okay, I'm going to go ahead. This is part two, but I'm going to pause this while I work this out, and then I'll talk about what I did when I'm done. All right. Now, I went ahead and I did this for you because of time, trying to save you time on this. If you look, BC first and second, 4W minus 7 equals RS 2W plus 13, also first second. So those 2 points match up. So therefore, the 2 in yellow match up. You solve for W and you get a value of 10. Same thing with the X values, 2X plus 9 and 49. B is first, R is first. Therefore, those two match, and I set them equal. I get 2X plus equals 40 and X equals 20. So I get those. With D's, 2Y minus 31 equals Y plus 11 because D is third, T is third. So I highlighted those, and you get 2y minus 31 equals y plus 11, so you get y equals 42. And then the last one, I'm going to go ahead and write this last one. I'm going to write it over in black once I get to it, because you can barely see it with the orange highlighting. I don't like orange that well anyway. I know you all know that by now, but that's just me. Plus 10 equals z plus 16. So you can see it better at least, because ED is third, fourth, and TU is also third, fourth. So that's why those two match up with one another. So you get Z equals 3. All right, that's that. All right. And feel free, if you have any questions about any of this, just let me know. All right, now this one's pretty easy. I just went ahead and all of this here is given. It wasn't supposed to do that, but it did. PowerPoint's acting real funky today, so I'm just going to kind of work with it. I got my given. This is also given. All right, now from the information given, I can use any of the following. I can use angle. Actually, I can use side, angle, angle, which is angle, angle, side. I can use angle, angle, side, or I can use angle, angle, side. That's just from the information given. So I got all my information here, and I can use angle, angle, side. I can't use angle, side, angle because I know. And technically, if I wanted to, I could state that angle P is congruent to angle D because of the third angles theorem. But I don't need to do that. I'm just going by what I have here. I'm done. So angle, angle, side. There you go. We're good. All right. And I'm saving this so I don't lose it. All right. Okay, back up and running again. Okay, my first 2 bits of information, I'm given that PA is congruent to DC and angle PAC is congruent to angle DCA, and I'm trying to prove that side BC is congruent to side DA. I'm going to highlight those in purple, BC, and DA. I'm trying to prove that those two are congruent, and that's that right there. But before I do that, I got to first prove that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DCA. I got to prove that those two triangles are congruent. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight them. Highlight this one in yellow. You'll see why in a moment. And highlight this one in blue. You'll see why in a moment. All right. So the first 2 statements, obviously, as you can see, are my given. And they're marked right here. These 2 sides and those 2 angles. Okay. Now, from information right here given, if you look, both the yellow and blue triangles share common side AC. So AC is congruent to itself by the reflexive property So I'm going to mark that with 2 slashes. Now, if you look at your information, you will see that we have enough to prove that the 2 triangles are congruent because of side, angle, side. So triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DCA by side, angle, side, side, angle, side. 2 sides and the angle that they share. And then once you prove the triangle is congruent, you can prove the remaining parts are congruent by CP, CTC. So CP, CTC. All right. All right, so that's that one. All right, now I'm going to go through this one again. I'm trying to prove here's what I'm trying to prove. I'm trying to prove that angle Y right there is congruent to angle Z. I'm trying to prove that those angles are congruent, but to do so, I must first prove that this triangle right here is congruent to this triangle right here. So I'm trying to prove that those 2 triangles are congruent. I'm given that V is the midpoint of YZ, and I'm given that WV is congruent to VX. So we'll mark those on our diagram. That's given. And this is the given. All right, so I got VW is congruent to XV right there. Those 2 are congruent. Now, I'm also told that V is the midpoint of YZ. So that means that YV is congruent to VZ. And that is by definition of midpoint. So by definition of midpoint, those 2 are congruent. All right, now I can either label these the long way or I can just number them. I can call this angle 1 and I call that angle 2. I can state that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2 because they're vertical angles. So those 2 angles are vertical angles, and notice I'm marking the diagram as I go through it. And then, now I have enough to prove the triangle is congruent. These are congruent by side, angle, side. So triangle YVW is congruent to triangle ZXV, and that is by the side, angle, side. Doesn't matter whether it's postular theorem. And then once you prove that the 2 triangles are congruent, they are congruent by CPC, TC. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Okay, now I'm going to pause this for a moment. I'm going to write the next one out and then I'll talk about it with you. Okay, now we're back. Now we're given that MBD is perpendicular. This means perpendicular right here to AC. Now you know perpendicular means it forms a right angle. So I went ahead and labeled this angle 1 and that angle 2. So I have to first state, after I have the given, because this is the given, you write this down. We got our given. Then we have angle 1 has an equal measure with angle 2, which they both equal 90. That is by definition of perpendicular. Now this is a 2-step process, and I'm going to highlight that right there because it's very important that you know this. This is a 2-step process. You have to include in both of them. All right. Then once you state that they have equal measure by definition of perpendicular, then you come back and state that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2 by all right angles congruent. Now you probably won't have a proof as intense as this one, but it's good to see what they look like. All right, Then we got BD is congruent to itself by reflexive property. And then that there is enough to prove that the triangles are congruent by the angle-side theorem. And then once we prove that the angle-side theorem, we can come back and later state that these two sides right there are congruent by CP/CTC, or corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. And then after that, D is the midpoint. Once we state that their segments are congruent, we can come back and state that D is the midpoint of AC by the definition of midpoint. All right, that's that. I'll talk to you about this more in class. And then same thing here. I is congruent to L because they're both first. Set them equal, you get X equals 30. K is congruent to M, so therefore Z is equal to 60. And then Y, 6Y minus 2 is equal to 10 because of the similarity statement. You look at the congruent statement right here, IK, first last, LM, first last. Look where they're positioned, and that will tell you what you need to know. All right, so that's the quiz review. If you have any questions, bring them up with class or email me, and we will talk more about this in class.